Welcome to FRC Media News for Thursday, January 16th, 2020. I'm Keith Tebow. On tonight's program, the Fall River City Council held its first meeting this week. We look at some of the items that they tackled. Concern continues to be raised by local residents around the King Philip Mill development. And what effects are there for children who spend a lot of their time on their cell phones? We'll have these coming up in just a few moments. But first, let's check out the news headlines of the week. We bring in Phil Devitt, the digital news editor at the Herald News. Phil, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Keith. Good to be. Thank you.
Good to see you again. Let's get right to the City Council. We teased it a little bit at the beginning of the show. City Council held its first meeting of the new session and of the new year this past Tuesday. And right off the bat, during their Finance Committee hearing where they have public input, there was residents there very concerned about the traffic patterns and parking situations around the Northeast Alternative site, the marijuana dispensary in the far south end. And it looks like there's no easy resolution at this point.
No, and that's what's so frustrating to particularly the residents of this neighborhood surrounding Northeast Alternatives on the Tiverton border off William S. Canning Boulevard. We're no stranger to these sort of complaint stories about Northeast Alternatives. Residents have been complaining for months and months, just about, pretty much since this dispensary opened last year. As the only recreational marijuana dispensary in Fall River, it's been a busy place, which means a lot of traffic in the neighborhood. But there are complaints about property damage as well, neighbors complaining about odors emanating from the business. So there's a multi-layered complaint happening here. And they've gone before various boards, now going before the City Council to see if anything can be done. On the council's end, the council took no action on Tuesday after hearing from residents, just kind of took in the complaints again, let people, register their feedback. But one possible solution to come out of this could be something as simple as a traffic light, just to sort of regulate the flow of traffic in and out of the parking lot and the side road that people have to use, which is also a residential street. Now, as far as that traffic light goes, funding could be an issue. So there's some talk about it coming, but it could be a while. It doesn't look like anytime soon anybody's going to be able to wave a magic wand and have this whole thing fixed and everything be hunky-dory. But it would be nice to see a solution at some point soon. Yeah,
well, I mean, there's so much traffic going in and out, people coming from Tiverton, people coming from, there's been lines right up to Route 24, the off-ramps there on Route 24, people looking to get into that, to that business, there's no easy answer. And one item that was brought up, which was sort of interesting, is the fact that forcing customers that leave the parking lot to take a right, and then if you go take a right onto, you end up coming to Stafford Road, and that ends up being in Rhode Island. And the concern there is that it is illegal to purchase marijuana or have marijuana products if you're in Rhode Island. So that was the concern of people, where if they took a right, they can actually go up there, turn around. There's a roundabout up there, turn around and head back up, or go down Stafford Road and get back into the city. But the concern was the fact that the state of Rhode Island, recreational marijuana is not legal in Rhode Island. It could be an issue. And if you're a police department, say in Tiverton, Rhode Island, who knows? Maybe someone would be waiting for someone entering their state. So it's very difficult, mainly based on not only where they're situated in terms of the lack of parking, but also where they are physically in the city, so close to the state line.
It's a tough location, and you think taking a right would solve a lot of the problem, but you have that Rhode Island issue, and it's very difficult to take a left onto William S. Canning Boulevard on a busy afternoon from that lot. So you get extra backup there, in addition to the backup you would get normally from it just being a popular place to visit.
Right. So that's the problem. Everyone wants to go left, but because there are people trying to get into the parking lot, and the lack of parking. So again, we'll continue to follow as both the City Council, and I believe the issue was officially referred to the Mayor's office, see what the Mayor has to say about alleviating issues in that area. Also, the City Council on Tuesday voted to approve the appointment of Alan Rumsey as the new Corporation Counsel for the City of Fall River. We talked last week briefly about Mr. Rumsey. We don't know too much about him, but what we do know is that the City Council, even though they approved his appointment by a 5-3 vote, the vote was split.
It was, yeah. It wasn't a complete ringing endorsement for Mr. Rumsey. We should note that Councilor Leo Pelletier was not present to vote, so this was a 5-3 vote. Among the councilors voting against Mr. Rumsey's appointment was Sean Kadim, who's back on the council this year. Kadim basically arguing that Rumsey lacks the kind of municipal law experience he'd like to see the person who inhabits this role have. But ultimately, more councilors in favor, including Pamela Liberty LeBeau, who gave Mr. Rumsey some glowing reviews. And just an interesting note, he'll be making $120,000 a year as the city's corporation counsel, and that's $10,000 more than his predecessor, Joe Macy, who was a retired judge.
So that's interesting to know that he makes a little more. And it was interesting to see that at this first meeting, on this issue and others, that the three new councilors, Michelle Dion, Trot Lee, and Christopher Peckham, all were not afraid to share their opinions on this issue and others. So that's good to see, with Trot Lee voting, one of the three voting against the appointment.
Absolutely, yeah. What you have here, I think, are counselors who, even though they're new to the team, are not afraid to express themselves, not afraid to weigh in, and I think that that's a good thing. You want people who are going to voice their opinions, and hopefully the opinions of their constituents on this board, and not be afraid to speak up. So, this is the first big meeting of the year. It'll be interesting to see the dynamics of this council as we go forward and how they all work together. Hopefully, work together.
All right. And speaking of new years and things that are new, with changing in administrations, there's also a turnover of sorts on some of the city commissions and boards. And Joe Good had an article this week about the Redevelopment Authority, which has been in the news quite a bit in terms of helping with economic development. Well, it looks like that they only have one active member on that board that is currently serving. The other members either has stepped down. Michelle Dion, City Councilor Dion, stepped down after her election as a city councilor, and others have not been either reappointed or asked to be appointed. So the RDA right now really can't conduct any business.
That's correct, Keith. I believe in Joe's report, she notes that the only remaining member from the previous iteration of the RDA is Lorianne Taylor Branco. This week is a critical one for the Redevelopment Authority. The mayor telling us that he plans to devote some serious attention to this, get the board filled up as soon as he can. Of course, the city is not the only one making picks for this. There's also a governor pick. And the reason for putting some speed on this is because anybody who's been paying attention in the city lately knows the RDA has some serious business in front of it, including work with the city pier, which was a big story in Fall River last year, and will remain so this year, and urban development growth in general in the city. This is a pivotal moment where we're looking at the waterfront. We're also looking at developments popping up in the north end. And so this redevelopment authority is not one that's just going to be, kind of strumming its fingers on the table. There's work to do. So we want to get those slots filled with the appropriate people. Right.
So that's part of a transition with a new administration. Some of these positions on boards and committees have to be filled. Finally, this week, Phil, unfortunately, we had a sort of a difficult weekend for fires in the city of Fall River. There was a mill off Bedford Street that caught fire. Firefighters doing a fantastic job knocking that down before it became a problem, as well as a couple of house fires. 4th Street comes to mind, and it looks like on at least a couple of these cases that both fires at the mill and one on 4th Street could have actually been set.
Yeah, particularly with 4th Street, we talked to fire investigators earlier this week. They say they've ruled out pretty much everything but arson at this point.
Right.
And when we last spoke to the fire department, they said they didn't know who did it, but they had identified a point of origin with no ignition source, which led them to conclude that it was intentionally set. We should note also there were minor burns to 3 firefighters in that fire. 5 tenants were displaced from the home. And a $5,000 reward is being offered to anybody who has information about how that fire was set. And then, of course, on Monday morning, the early hours of Monday morning, you had 2 fires practically at the same time, keeping the Fall River Fire Department very busy. The mill, Stafford Mill, and then a home on Tremont Street. Again, I think at the Stafford one firefighter was hospitalized with an ankle injury.
Right.
And Tremont Street fire, it took them a few hours to get it under control, but thankfully no other buildings were, kind of hurt, and nobody else was hurt in the process.
Yeah. You also mentioned with the mill fire. I also noticed this week, if you go to the Herald News website, there is a photo collage of the big Kerr Mill fire, which happened in about this time back in 1987. I remember it well.
Yeah.
I was a senior in college at the time, and I do remember that big fire happening that time. And I'm sure many of you watching here are old enough to remember the Kerr Mill fire back in 1987, some 30 plus years ago, 33 years ago. Actually,
33, yeah.
33 years ago. Seems like only yesterday, unfortunately, but now that's where, of course, Meditech is right now, and the UMass Dartmouth Innovation Center is also in that space off of Eastern Avenue. So anyway, good to see those
That's
photos
right.
of history. Unfortunately, a disastrous history, but one nonetheless, and it was a good timing in terms of the fire this week. All right, Phil, what's coming up over the next few days?
So we talked earlier about development in the city, including in the North End. Star recently purchased some property up there, People Incorporated, and now we're putting together a story about the redevelopment of the Sagamore Mill property, also up there in the Weaver Street area. So we'll tell people a little bit about what's coming or could come to that area soon. All
right, good news, good things happening in redevelopment. So it's all good. All right, Phil, we'll talk next week. Take care.
Sounds good.
We'll have more FRC Media news right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Speech Language Pathologist Assistant. Futures Education is looking to hire a full-time speech language pathologist assistant to assist a speech language pathologist in the assessment and treatment of speech, language, voice, and fluency disorders. Job number 130-505-84. Cook. Stepping Stone Incorporated, located at 542 North Main Street, is looking for a full-time cook to prepare daily meals, check order deliveries, and maintain a safe and clean kitchen. Job number 130-50209. Clerical worker. Gabriel Care Adult Foster Care, located at 376 South Main Street, is urgently looking for a full or part-time clerical worker, responsible for answering the phone, explaining the adult foster care program to potential clients, and billing submission. Job number 130-54815. Crunch Fitness, located at 450 William S. Canning Boulevard, is looking to fulfill the following full and part-time positions. General Manager, job number 130-54657. Front Desk Associate, job number 130-54780. St. Anne's Hospital, located at 795 Middle Street, is also looking to fulfill the following full and part-time positions. Registered Nurse, job number 130-53796. Purchasing Agent, job number 130-54787. For more information on these or other positions, visit Mass Hire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. Residents of the South End continue to have concerns over the delays and obstacles facing the development of the King Philip Mill site off Kilburn Street. Reverend Jim Hornsby is one of them.
A couple of other issues came up. One, there were neighbors, people, and others who were concerned about asbestos. I heard rats this morning, and so forth. And that's been well publicized on I heard it on the radio. The other issue is there was to be a path around Cook Pond. Some of us actually worked to hew out the path. The city sold the land without a right-of-way. And so I'm in the position of hoping to meet Mr. Kafuri, and I will have called him. If there's some way to continue the path around.
The city's Conservation Commission recently toured the site with a focus on environmental elements around Cook Pond.
Reverend Hornsby opened up that fact that he hadn't been able to walk the site, and none of us had been able to walk the site. So for him, it was a major concern to be able to come out here, take a look, make sure that the activities are not contaminating the water, Cook Pond. So that's what we're here for today. The owner was nice enough to allow us the opportunity to come out and take a look at it, and schedule the meeting, which is why everybody is here right now. So Bill is going to walk us through and just give us an idea of what we're looking at, and as we're reviewing everything, just make sure everything's looking right, which the contractors doing this has a very good reputation, and we're expecting everything to be on point. But if it's not, at this point we'll be able to say, okay, we want to make sure these things are taken care of.
But you're not here for the building demolition?
No, we're here because there's renovations being done near the water. So 100 feet from Cook Pond, anything that's being done there, we're here to make sure that there's no contamination going into the water.
Our regulation for Conservation Commission is within any development within 100 feet of a resource area. Cook Pond is a resource area, so our or the conservation bylaw and limits are the lots the proposed lots that border Cook Pond. So it's how those lots will be developed. Silt fence, setbacks from Cook Pond and those sorts of things. The subdivision drains the drainage, so the stormwater, and then the ultimate drainage into Cook Pond. That's the purview of the Conservation Commission.
We'll have more right after this.
Thank you for considering a homeless pet today. I hope you enjoy what you're about to see, and as always, please feel free to contact the shelter before coming down to make sure that the pets you're viewing are still available for adoption. We can be reached at 508-677-9154.
Today we have Timmy. Timmy is a 5-year-old Podango mix. Timmy is very active. He'd love to be outside, love to go on walks, love to go hiking. He would probably excel very well at agility and maybe even scent work. Timmy would do best in a home with older children, around 5 and older. He can be a little timid at first, but once he warms up to you, he's very friendly. Sit, good job. Shake. If you are an active person and you want an adventure companion, Timmy just might be the friend for you. If you want to meet Timmy, come on down to Forever Paws Animal Shelter at 300 Linwood Street and say hi.
Today we have Sophie. Sophie here is a 3-year-old short hair. As you can see, very pretty, very distinctive face and colors. She's not the super playful kind of cat. She's more of the hang out kind of cat. As far as what kinds of people or what kind of home she would be best in, probably ideally quiet or average like energy home, that kind of stuff. She probably would not do well with dogs, however. She can be particular about who she likes in the canine world. But as you can see, she can be really sweet with people. So if you'd like to meet Sophie here, you can come down to 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
United Neighbors of Fall River held a workshop this week on the dangers of youngsters being addicted to their phones. It's a problem the organization's guest speaker says is troubling.
The first of which is that what we really need right now is to reconnect to what we know to be true about child development, okay? We know that kids do their incredible learning socially, emotionally, behavioral regulation, their cognitive development through live interactive play when they're younger, and thinking as they get older, and being challenged and learning how to think critically for themselves, solve problems, etc. So I think we need to get back to that. And all of this technology has distracted parents and children alike from that. And so we're seeing an imbalance come into play. And it's really that imbalance where we see the problems. So I'm trying to get the point out there that we need to actually be more aware, doing more on the social and emotional development of our children, establishing our connection and our dialogue with them early on, making sure they have lots of opportunity to do that learning they need to do, and then that becomes a protective factor in this explosion of technology that has occurred, that has happened at such warp speed and has so many variables impacting us and making us as parents and as clinicians and providers supporting parents and kids, rendering us kind of helpless and confused and overwhelmed and not as effective.
That's it for this edition of FRC Media News. You can watch FRC Media News Thursdays and Fridays at 6 p.m. and online at our website, frmedia.org. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday.